So high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Good evening, everybody at the West Ham Network. Thank you for joining us on a crazy day as a West Ham fan. Honestly, you could not write it. And I'm not even remotely joking. The roller coaster of West Ham fans' emotions are here. They're there. They're everywhere. And they're here to stay for a long time. Honestly, it doesn't matter what happens. You know, 1 minute you're excited and buzzing about Julien Lopetegui being announced as West Ham's new head coach, coming into the club with a new direction, a new era, and then suddenly this evening you get the news of the charge from the FA on Lucas Paqueta. So tonight we are live, so keep your questions coming in, keep your comments coming in, but we're not alone. We are not alone. We're joined by our first guest. He's not a guest, he's a West Ham Network OG, and let's bring him in. And you haven't seen him for a little while. He's been disappearing, but he's back. He's Stat Attack. Stato, mate, how you doing?
I was going to say good, but yeah, it's bombshell dropped sort of all over the place, really. It's just no one. I didn't expect this. I don't know if many people did, to be honest. You know, this whole chucks out all these charges at Paqueta. I don't think anyone. Well, if you believe the social media sphere and journalists, everyone had it nailed on. There was no evidence. Nothing's going to happen, and then start out of nowhere, dropped all these charges on him.
Yeah. So let me bring people up to speed where and where we're going to go with this show in particular. Now, he's been charged with spot fixing offences. So even I had to just quickly make sure I was understanding exactly what the situation was in comparison to match fixing, spot fixing, betting on games that you're involved in, betting on games that you're not involved in. Spot fixing is when you can determine an actual physical thing probably guaranteed to happen in a game, which can potentially change the dynamics of the game as such. And that's exactly what it is. And that is in relation to 4 incidents. So please understand that spot fixing. Think about it. He's been accused of spot fixing 4 yellow cards in particular in relation to games in 2022 and 2023. Now, the spot fixing charges don't necessarily lead to the result of the game, but it leads to the result of a factual thing that happens in that game, which is against the rules of the FA. And to be honest, they throw the book at you for it. So that is what the situation is. Me and Matt were just speaking beforehand. So let me just quickly read a couple of things to you. It's alleged that he directly sought to influence the process, progress, conduct, or any other aspect or occurrence in these matches by intentionally seeking to receive a card for the referee for the improper purpose of affecting the betting market in order for one of the persons to profit from betting. Lucas Paqueta put out a statement. On the back of it says, "I'm extremely surprised and upset that the FA have decided to charge me for 9 months. Well, for 9 months, I have cooperated with every step of their investigation." Now, keep that part in your head there, what I've just said there. I have cooperated with every step of their investigation and provided all the information I can. Keep that part in your head. Information I can. I deny the charges in their entirety and will fight with every breath if it might clear my name due to the ongoing process. I will not providing any other statement. Now, Paqueta has also been charged with 2 breaches of FA Rule F3 in respect to alleged failures to comply, which relates to providing information and documents. Failures to comply with that, which is what really is potentially concerning. Matt, from what I've said so far, we didn't expect it. How serious do West Ham need to be taking this right now?
It's either like extremely serious, or this is like an absolute last gasp. We're going to try and put him under. You know, there's only one of 2 ways. Because if you want to go into the last bit, which was, you know, the failure to comply, again, if we believe the ITK, if we believe the media journalists, at one point last year, maybe October or something, he gave over his phone and his passwords. So they physically had his mobile phone with all his communications, right? And he answered, I think twice he turned up for voluntary interviews. So if he's turned up for interviews and he's given over his phone, I don't see what more, unless they said to him, we want we want the phone records from your family in Brazil, which he doesn't legally have to provide them because it's about him, not his family.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see what they can really go down the rule of he's not complied with. Yeah, let's not forget.
Yeah, go for it.
In a court of law, which he could well not forget, if he gets charged and they find him guilty, he could say, well, I'm taking this to court of arbitration. You don't have to provide evidence. You know, in a legal sense, you have the right to remain silent. He's given them evidence, and it's then up to the prosecutors to, without a shadow of beyond doubt, prove he's guilty. The fact he's openly given evidence showing, no, I'm not, here it is, and they then said, well, you failed to comply, that could have a very big sway in the case when it goes to this like 3-person panel, I think it goes in front of.
Yeah. Because
straight away, one of them's going to be telling the truth and one of them's going to be lying. He either gave evidence or he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that could very much sway how the whole thing goes. Because I don't think there's a lot of evidence to the other side.
Just to make things a little bit clearer, there is a couple of situations that people are comparing it to. You've got Tonali of Newcastle United and Ivan Toney of Brentford. Matt, what's the difference?
Right, so I was going to try and explain this earlier. They've been done for betting. Now, betting in general is illegal in football, mainly because I think back in like the 70s and the 80s or something, that there was, like you said, there was spot fixing. Matches were being decided intentionally. Players were betting on it, right? And then they were getting sucked into mafia stuff, or you've bet on this now, so you need to do this. So to try and stamp all that out, they were like, look, you cannot bet on... I don't understand why it's any sport. I don't understand why a footballer can't bet on boxing or the UFC, but they can't bet on sport. So they've said, look, you can't bet on sport. Like Ivan Toney, for instance, I think most of his bets were in relation to betting on Newcastle while he was on loan at Wigan. So at best, he had maybe insider info on who the starting lineup would be, or who's injured and who's looking good in training. But he couldn't have a material impact on the outcome of the match. Like I think even the games he bet on himself to score. Which, I'm not being funny, as a centre forward, your job is to score. He's not swayed anything. He's not influenced anything. Whereas Paqueta is spot fixing. Spot fixing is you've had an outside influences. You've said to them, look. So, for instance, I think one of the yellow cards is Leeds or Aston Villa. I think the clip I've seen going around is Aston Villa. So basically, what they're saying is he told, and I can't remember, is it like 20, 30 people or something? I can't remember how many numbers it's supposed to have been. Betted somewhere between like 500 and 1,000 each. But basically, they're saying is he told all these people back on his home island,
which is
Paqueta
also
Isle?
known as Paqueta Island, just off of Rio de Janeiro.
He's basically, they're saying what he's done is he's contacted them and said, look, on this day, we are playing Aston Villa. I will get booked. put money on me getting booked. But it's also not just him. And this is where the case could even more fall apart. Because I'm sure the very first game it was flagged on might have been the Aston Villa game, but it wasn't just Paqueta to get booked. There was a player playing in La Liga who was also a Brazilian, and the bet was that they would both be booked on that weekend's round of games. So what they're saying is the spot fixing is you've agreed to be booked for the benefit of financial gain outside thing, which is spot fixing. That is, we're going to get into, there's a couple of examples of in the football in England, but the big example that no one's really picked up on yet is in the cricket. If you go back to about 2010, it's around then, Pakistan were playing England in a test match. And I think ended up the captain and maybe two of the bowlers got jail sentences. They'd done jail time. I think they'd done like 2-3 years in jail for spot fixing on bowling no balls in like so many no balls in so many overs or something. And it'll come out that was spot fixing. So spot fixing, if it is actually, it's a fraud. It comes under the Criminal Act now. You can be charged with fraud. So the fact that the Premier League have said, we're charging him, but there's no police investigation, I don't know where we stand.
So again, Matt, just reiterate that part so people understand it. This is us trying to fully get the picture and bring this picture to you to make you understand what the potential repercussions is of this. So we're led to believe that on the basis of historic similar situations through all different sports, a criminal conviction can be raised depending on if you are being charged or investigated on this matter. What Matt's saying is, if that is the case, why are the Met Police not involved with the Lucas Pakita situation? Again, you have to remember, we're not experts in this field, so we're trying to pull the information together as clear as we possibly can to be able to bring this information to you individually. I'm going to bring our fellow West Ham network, our Holly, on.
Hello,
Holly,
hello.
okay?
Yeah, good. Thank you. How are you both?
We've turned into detectives, Holly, and we're trying to work out the situation here with Pakita. So we've just kind of gone through the difference between spot fixing, thanks to your analogy on the WhatsApp. That really helped us all, I think, to be honest. I should have played it. I should have played it for everyone, but I didn't get a chance to do it. And obviously things like match fixing. Matt's been bringing us up to speed on using case examples of previous sports with the Pakistan cricket team, etc.
Yeah.
And we're now talking about how it is a criminal offence what he is alleged to being charged of. So if it is, why are they not involving the Met Police at this time? Holly, briefly, I'll hand over to you regarding the Pakita situation, and we'll go into some examples of what could happen to him.
Yes, I'm mainly just like you said, I'm intrigued to see how far this will go, because if it is an actual criminal offence, which obviously fixing bets is, I wonder if that's something that happens at a later stage, maybe, whether the FA are the ones that bring it to the attention and place the ban, and then the police do get involved. I guess a lot of the time you don't also hear until it's kind of happened. Like, we'd hoped that nothing was happening of it. Obviously, Paqueta might have known for a little while, but we've heard today that obviously things are occurring. But I don't really know, like, even, do you know timescales on how long it would take for a ban and things like that to come into effect?
No, I think well, they've given him the opportunity to come back. I think by the 3rd of June is the date that he's got to respond. Matt, you even said earlier on, it's funny because it's funny when you look at our chats, we're being devil's advocates. We're writing comments and then we're being devil's advocates to our own comments. But I will repeat exactly what you actually said, Matt, in the chat. Let me just find it here. You're confused how after the giving the evidence, they're charging him with failing to comply because he has to give over any evidence, but he doesn't have to answer any questions that you've said. They can't charge him with that just because he's chosen not to. Everyone has the right to remain silent, and it's up to the prosecution to prove beyond doubt someone is guilty. You made the next point, which was, I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing this to extend the case. Because obviously, what we were hearing was that his representatives were saying, drop it, charge me, or drop it. Like, I think the timescale was coming up to what they were doing, and they were probably not getting any response. So again, it's all hearsay. There's no factual parts behind this. It's just a case of trying to work it out. If that is the case, though, Holly, if it is a case of going, charge me or let it or drop it, then they've gone ahead and made the charge.
Yeah,
but that doesn't necessarily mean you're fully guilty until
until proven. And to what extent he's guilty, I suppose they'd need the evidence for all 4 of the yellow cards as well to see how serious it was. As West Ham Voice has said here, that that's not West Ham Voice, I pressed on the wrong one. But if found guilty, it's not a Tony type of ban. So I don't know if you've probably gone through this, but the main difference between Tony and Tonali's bans was that they have bet when they're not supposed to bet on football, but they didn't bet on anything that they had a direct impact on. Whereas with Paqueta, spot fixing is very different because it's something that he's chosen to do, which is where it becomes more of like a criminal offence, because essentially you're cheating the betting system. So it won't be just like a bit of a ban. I think if he is found to be guilty, forgetting the criminal side and whether or not he is found guilty, I think you look at a far longer ban. I don't actually know if there are any similar situations I can think of in football where someone's directly impacted.
So I was going to bring this up. So we're going to talk about very briefly a player that has had a similar or similar situation, right? So we'll come into the comments. That's Stel. So Stel, good to see you, mate. So here is a player called Bradley Wood, right? Just for the sake of it, and I'm bringing it up for you. So he was banned for 6 years after twice intentionally getting booked during Lincoln City's FA Cup run back in 2017. He was found guilty by the FA Tribunal of a 2-match fixing offences after telling friends he would try to get booked in the victories over Ipswich and Burnley, respectively. The FA said 7 people, including 2 close friends, bet on him to be booked. The potential winnings totaled around £10,000, but not all were paid. Wood, who then went on to play for other teams, eventually after his ban was finished, contested both charges, but admitted to 23 other betting offences. The FA Independent Regulatory Commission judgment said that the fact that none of the 7 people had previously bet on bookings, plus the size of the bets, made them stand out. Wood was given a 5-year ban for the match fixing offences. I think there's maybe some change in names because this was obviously a situation that happened a long time ago. So in theory, the match fixing offences classify as spot fixing offences, and a further year after admitting 22 charges of betting on the outcome of matches and 1 charge of passing on information. He was fined certain money and suspended until this year, 8th of March this year.
How many years ago was this that it happened?
This 2018.
Ooh.
2018.
Yeah.
So they were informed, Lincoln City were informed of the investigation in April of 2017, and then they eventually suspended him for 2 weeks of his contract, and he was then subsequently released in May. Now, what they also said was, the judgment said 2 of the 7 people who placed bets, they've named them, but I won't name them. The phone records show that the player was in extensive contact with him before each game. He texted one of his friends 42 times before the Ipswich match, and then he texted his brother-in-law 52 times in the morning of the Burnley game, where they came up with the situation. And one of his other friends placed a bet on him to get booked. And the content of the messages is not known because he refused to allow his phone to be inspected, whilst some other parts of the phone were wiped as well. Let me just have a look here. Some of the people who were betting were using a betting account for the first time and were betting large bets as well. And the amounts that were staked were truly exceptional, with one betting firm reporting they'd never seen a 4-figure amount staked on a player to be booked. So it was becoming really, really clear that something was going on wrong here as well. Let me just have a look here.
This is what I wonder as well, in terms of how much sort of, obviously that evidence is absolutely damning for him. Like, you can see what he's been doing. He's not cooperating. So I wonder, when they say about Paqueta not cooperating, whether it is kind of like a matter of not wanting to hand a phone over, or whether it's like being slow to reply to emails asking for like passwords, or to what extent he's not been cooperating. But those like someone said there, that if the FA had something like concrete, surely he'd be charged. I wonder if they have that and it's in the works and they're just putting everything together and going through like formalities, because if there's evidence like that, then it's black and white, isn't it? But if they have proof.
Yeah, well, they've also, what's interesting when you read this really in detail is that even though those charges for this particular player for the same situation as Paqueta, he actually got charged under the match fixing offences rather than, I'm just reading it now, rather than spot fixing. So match fixing offences. But they didn't believe, even though he got charged for them, they did not believe the outcome of either match had been affected by his behaviour. Taking this into account, together with the lack of evidence that he would have, the player himself, personally benefited financially, and the modesty of the sums, the panel decided on a 5-year ban rather than a lifetime ban.
Okay.
So that is the situation. And then there's more there as well, but they're talking about the yellow cards, potentially place himself in positions to get booked, which we've seen from the videos. And then there's comments in the chat here. What's really interesting, because you have to take something that I'm going to bring up here, and it comes from Freshfielder. He's always in the mix for a card, so it's a logical option for anyone with a, bit of betting knowledge to potentially put that on. And earlier on in one of the shows I actually brought up some of his yellow card stats. He's a bit of a regular, it's a little bit like if you bet 50 quid on every single game that Alvarez gets yellow cards, you're probably going to walk out up at the end of the season.
I was literally about to say that. Like, he played 41 games last season and he got booked 16, 17 times.
Yeah.
So you're almost 1 in 2 games he got booked. So if I bet a fiver every week for Alvarez to be booked, at the end of the season, we've been investigated for spot fixing. Like, this guy's bet on you every week, and you got booked. I spot fixing, right?
And because you live in London and you're close to Alvarez, on the geography map, you're linked. But equally though, unless you have damning evidence, it's going to be really tough to prove. And I genuinely think, as much as the FA are coming out and being as blasé as what they're saying, I think it is going to be really tough to prove. Again, we're saying this from the lack of information. We will never have the full information because we're not there in the circumstances. My concern about the situation falls in 2 patterns. I don't necessarily trust the FA, if I'm being brutally honest. I think they've got a bit of a history of not dealing with things in the correct manner. And equally, if he is guilty, then I'm worried about what happens, because West Ham, in theory, now will lose our asset, our big asset, a good player, and a massive amount of money.
It is worrying, isn't it? And obviously, City backed off after wanting him, presumably because they were concerned about what this could mean, as well as us not wanting to obviously part with him at that moment in time. And I guess if we get another season from him before he's found guilty and banned, it would be helpful. But in terms of how much money you'd lose in the value, when we're talking about the player that is worth so much and all the likes of City are after, the chances of that being the same player that then basically gets their value reduced to absolutely zero and can't play if they're found guilty is quite unlucky, isn't it? It's very West Ham.
It is, isn't it? And it's such a crazy day of emotions. I said that when we first came on. The news of Julian Lopetegui coming in as West Ham's head coach, you're kind of a little bit elated, a little bit excited. You've got a little bit of butterflies in your stomach thinking about the links. You're looking through all the links of players and you're thinking, God, there's some genuine, real, strong, interested parties there. And some of the genuine reporters who are close to the board are giving us names that were like, holy shit, man, like this is cool. Let's not get carried away, but this is kind of cool. And then suddenly, bang.
Yeah.
As West Ham do, we come down. I think the ban would be enforceable if he was to move overseas, because Tonali was a very sick, albeit they were all different things. I think the biggest ban from him came from the Italian FA. Is that correct? From our knowledge,
I'm not 100% sure.
He was banned from the English FA and the Italian FA, which then meant it was a world. I believe
if he got a ban that UEFA and probably FIFA will uphold it. So like the one example I know is I think of is Daniel Sturridge.
Hmm.
He got
Yeah.
banned for like insider betting when he told his brother he was getting transferred, and then he moved to Galatasaray, Trabzonspor, one of the Turkish teams. Literally moved there, got banned for 4 months, and then they sacked him because they couldn't play him. So it would, if he got like, the only place that he may get away with it is like the Saudi league, because they've just got enough money to make it not matter anyway.
That's what I was wondering as well, in terms of if the rules don't always apply over there and they're kind of fine, like not sticking to the same sort of rules as other FAs. I wonder whether that could be the one place that you could continue to play.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
I do not know.
There is another player that Matt was talking about, and his name is Keenan Isaac. Keenan Isaac played for Stratford Town. He was banned for 10 years for his part in spot fixing during an FA Cup tie. It was later alleged that he was deliberately booked as part of a betting scheme with friends. He was given a further 18-month ban after being found guilty of placing and enabling almost 350 bets on matches over a 5-year period. Again, they must have had clear enough evidence in there. He had spells with big clubs like Reading and Luton, and it says here the FA charged him with an influenced a football betting market during Stratford Town Shrewsbury Town game in 2021. He also faced the charge of failing to provide telephone billing records and or details of his internet service during an interview of March this year. So again, really interesting that the FA are coming out and saying failure to comply. Well, again, we don't know the full information, but Paqueta's coming out and standing his ground and going, well, I've complied, fully. Matt, were you about to say something there?
I was just like, I was going to say, it's literally going to go one way or the other, because if this is a case of someone is lying, right? And we can all sit there and play devil's advocate, but either they've found something in the last 2 weeks and they've now charged him and Paqueta is lying and he's guilty and it's over, or like we've said, there's 7 days left for the actual investigation. They've chucked it at him and gone, we're going to charge you because we know full well you're going to appeal. So that will kick it down the road to either find more time to get evidence or hope you crack under pressure. But if they just go to this independent panel with no other evidence and you've got, he made 4 disgusting tackles in 4 individual games and 30 people halfway around the world bet on him to get booked, they're not going to have that. That will not stand like in any actual court of law, because it's just circumstantial evidence. There's no factual guarantee of you told them you were going to get booked. It could be done next week. So he's got until the 3rd, and then how long this takes is entirely basically up to the FA.
Yeah,
how long they will draw out to put it in front of the panel.
Because also with the FA, they're obviously not like an absolute crime team. They're not the police. They've not got like full-on investigative teams that are going to look into what's happened. So I wonder how much evidence they need to make a decision. Because as Anton was saying, like there have been very interesting decisions made by the FA previously. Is this something that they actually investigate, seeing as it could also be a criminal charge, thoroughly and properly, and need evidence to be able to accuse somebody of something? Or is it something where they kind of join the dots together and go, this person's bet and they didn't bet before and it's a new account and they bet only on these things? Like, you don't know how obvious the person betting's been in terms of it. Like we said that other person had like people that he knew, first time accounts, placing massive sums of money. There's so many things that need to fall into place, I suppose, to kind of give cause and effect of him having an impact and deciding to make a foul. Because like you said, he makes so many fouls, so many yellow cards. Paqueta's full of a yellow card. But
I'm sure he's up there for like defensive tackles and turnovers and regains, but he's an attacking midfielder, so tackling isn't his forte. And if anyone watches him, you can see that he has not had like any sort of defensive training in how to tackle. He just goes flying in. Sometimes he wins it, sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah.
Like,
hard, easy.
So someone here is saying, didn't Trippier tip his mates about his move to put bets on probing with WhatsApp and what happened there? And yeah, he was fined and given a 10-week ban as well.
Again, I think that might have
it's
been
funny.
like a transfer one as well. Like he said, he was getting transferred to someone
at Atletico. But it's interesting because it's not necessarily, it's not spot fixing, but it's for me, if you're betting on the game, you know, and the rules are simple. I mean, are they determining that if you can get a life ban from spot fixing for getting like okay, are they potentially turning around and saying that Paqueta could get a lifetime ban for spot fixing for getting a yellow card, and a same player could get a lifetime ban for scoring an own goal, as dramatic as that is sounding? And they are very different things, very clearly different things. They still all fall under the one bracket, but they are very, very clearly different things. You know, if you're a goalkeeper and you let a shot in or you drop a ball, it's easier to do it if you're a goalkeeper. But I'm just saying, like, it is very different.
And it doesn't seem like
that's Sorry.
Go on, you go.
No, go for it.
It doesn't seem like there's like a black and white distinction of what is spot fixing, what is match fixing, what makes it more serious or less serious. Like you said, conceding a goal as a goalkeeper, a lot easier to hide, and maybe it has happened under our noses and we haven't realised. But there's that, and then there's a yellow card which doesn't directly impact final league standing, the amount of points you get, the final score, which probably a lot more people do bet on. So I don't quite know how they judge or gauge the seriousness of an offence, or if that even makes a difference.
And sorry, there's part of me that kind of really agrees with what John's saying here. How about banning the betting companies from these ridiculous new betting schemes and number of bookings? I mean, it's honestly, in terms of people who do have gambling addictions, they also get rid of spot fixing situations. But what you can bet on nowadays is absolutely outrageous. Now, I previously used to bet, but not a lot. But I could see how I was starting to get a little bit carried away, and 8 years ago, before Freddie was born, decided just to stop point blank. Done. Not even do an accumulator, because when you used to do an accumulator, it was just a Saturday. Then it was a Saturday and a Sunday. Then it was a Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Then you could bet on Brazilian League 2, Junior League, Men's League, third division, Women's League, first division, second division in Argentina. Like, it was honestly becoming wild, and I was like, no. And then you look at the Tony situation, right? And then he comes back and he plays for Brentford with a betting company on his shirt. It's ridiculous. It's really, really ridiculous. And it's a little bit like, you know, the whole kind of tobacco thing. I don't know at what point you draw the lines. I don't know what you should and shouldn't wear, but people need to take responsibility for that situation. But they're not going to listen to us three here on the West Ham Network and 500 people that's watching the show. Of course they're not, because we're minuscule in comparison to what these multi-corporate companies are, aren't they? So, and equally though, you know, we sell our souls, because if a betting company previously, which they have done, came to us and went, there you go, sponsor us, and there's a little bit of money, we're like, okay, thanks very much. And then we're like, what the fuck are we doing? You know what I mean? It's mad. The whole thing's mad. Yeah,
no, it really, really is.
Jason says, can Lucas go to Saudi if he can still get banned? If that's the case, get him over there if he's guilty, or China, not in the European leagues or Champions Leagues.
Remains to be seen, doesn't it? I'm going to have a little look, but I doubt there's anything I can actually find that.
UEFA would definitely enforce the ban, but those two countries in particular, and FIFA turned around and said, if you don't enforce it, you're in trouble. They would probably be like, well, no, you know, we'll make him do something else. We'll bring him in.
I'm going to be like, it seems weird that someone would be stupid enough to use a phone email account under his own name. Surely you would use a burner phone or anonymous email. There's a part of me that honestly, it wouldn't put it past. I'm being really really conspiracy theorist here, but I wouldn't put it past the FA that they've just associated Paqueta with the Paqueta Island, and it's in Brazil, and people bet, and they thought, there's Paqueta. Oh, he gets booked. Oh, let's put fucking.
That was literally the whole point of the first. That's why he got flagged. Yeah, was because. By the way, I think we should remember the fact that it's Betway that's caused all this. Ironically, you know, because it was Betway that the accounts were opened on. But it was Betway that said, "Oh, by the way, like all these people just opened new accounts on Paqueta Island and have bet on Paqueta to get booked. Like, that is literally how the whole thing started.
On
And they
brand.
spent a year investigating and come back with nothing.
But I mean, but you know, think about what we've just said there about Alvarez. Just imagine us 3 and 500 of us. Like, let's take a percentage of that. Let's just say 50% of us decided to open up accounts and start betting on Alvarez getting yellow cards. Like, they would. That's irregular betting. That's irregular. But we've just taken a situation that's pretty common and thought, well, it probably makes sense. Will that change next year? No, probably not. He's going to get booked a lot next year. So it's like, it's just maybe whether or not their odds will shorten on him doing it. But
I guess as well, the amount of money that you're putting on. Like, if we all started putting £1,000 on that to happen, and then it did happen, and then I guess the missing puzzle piece as to whether or not they can legally charge Paqueta, and whether logically whether the FA should or shouldn't, depends on whether there's that little puzzle piece that proves that he deliberately made that tackle that gave away the foul, and that was what the person's bet on. I guess that's the one piece, which I don't know how long it'll be till we know if they have that piece.
what you say, Matt?
I'll say it's confused. The thing that's really thrown me about all this was that, if you remember back when he got charged, the Brazil manager dropped him and was like, I'm not having him involved until this investigation is cleared or sorted. And they were talking, obviously, directly to the Brazilian FA, who would to some extent be involved because it's happened. He's Brazilian international. It's happened under their soil. So the fact that come was it March or April, they were happy to bring him back into the Brazilian national team. Obviously, he played in the friendly against England. You'd think that the Brazilian FA would have told the Brazilian manager, oh, by the way, Paqueta's fine, recall him. So, like, what is this magical? Because is he not been called up for the latest squad again?
Yeah, but this may scupper that if it's the.
But this is what I mean. But that must have meant, to at least some extent, the Brazilian FA were under the impression that no, he's fine, we can pick him.
I suppose if it had gone quiet because there wasn't any new information that had come to light, or it wasn't being shared, and Paqueta was adamant that he hasn't done anything, which the whole way through he said that he hasn't and that he's been cooperative. So I wonder if maybe that sort of meant that they trusted the situation was okay enough to bring him into the national side. But you'd be surprised if they didn't have the information that literally the FA are currently working on taking him down.
Let's go through a few scenarios, right? He gets a career ban. Okay, West Ham lose an asset. People are saying what can happen. There's a strong possibility West Ham will try and sue somebody and try and reclaim some form of compensation through some form of insurance and get some money back, but probably not all the money back. I think that's probably what will happen if he does receive a career ban. Anyone interject or disagree or agree or with that?
No, I completely agree. But I think that we probably have very little of a leg to stand on when you need to do your sort of background checks of players when you bring them in. Whether he's got an issue with betting or was known to be in contact with people that were likely to sort of break these rules. I suppose it's kind of our own risk that we take on with every player that we bring in. Obviously, it's really unfortunate that it's a very good player worth a lot of money that we're going to miss out on. But I don't know how much we would get back legally. But like you said, I think all we could do is try and sue. But who are you suing? Like, are you suing Paqueta? Are you suing? I don't even know who else you tried to sue to recover any money.
No.
And what sum of money as well?
Paqueta, probably.
Like an insurance. Yeah.
Paqueta.
Value. You're never going to be able to sue him for 100 million, are you? For
so you can't say, oh, you've got this much time left on your contract for this much money. We want that money back.
Yeah.
So the max we're looking at is career. The kind of middle ground's 4 or 5 years if it's relation to and similar, and he does get found guilty and similar to the other two scenarios we've mentioned. 4 or 5 years, career's probably nearly done, but you can still come back from that if you're a professional footballer and go abroad eventually, you know, all that sort of stuff. But West Ham, in theory, would lose their asset. The next scenario could be something like similar to Tony or Tonali. And, you know, when you dig in deeper to Tonali's situation, he chose to voluntarily take a wage reduction, dramatic wage reduction during his ban. So that could be a situation for West Ham. And then the last option is that he is not found guilty and he gets walks away scot-free from this situation, and West Ham have their asset again. I was going to say, what's the best outcome? Obviously, we know what we want the outcome to be, but let's just pretend the asset's gone, or right now this summer the asset's gone. No matter what, we lose or don't have £85 million. Holly, how detrimental is that to our summer under the new head coach?
Massive. In terms of if we don't have Paqueta, huge.
If we don't have Paqueta and we don't have the money.
Massive, because I think that leaves a massive hole that we need to bring in another player for, and another player that we saw when he was injured, what a difference he made when he came back, the way he was linking up play. I know he's not had a few of the best games of his life, like recently, but he's a massive, massive part of us playing well. So to bring in somebody of that caliber would cost us an absolute fortune. And when you look at the financial fair play side of stuff, it's a percentage of what you bring in that you can actually spend. So it wouldn't just mess us up for who we could bring in to replace him, but it's based over 3 years. So that amount of money that we could have, let's say he's worth 100 mil, let's say, obviously it might not be that, but if he's worth 100 million, it's over the next 3 years, 100 million less that we're going to be able to spend a percentage of. So it is massive in terms of what that would actually do, not just right now, but for another 2 seasons afterwards. So I think that would be my biggest concern, that we don't have that money to reinvest at all. And then that's going to leave us short elsewhere, because do we try and bring in a replacement for Paqueta, or do we focus on the positions that are obviously more urgent for us right now? Yeah, it's pretty damaging, I would say.
Matt?
It depends. Like, it's going to really... The money-wise, I don't think it's going to be disastrous. I think there's apparently it's about 60, 70 million in the pot anyway. And then another 20 with the Ben Rama and Kira money. And then we know there's other players that are going to be sold. Like, they're talking about maybe Aguerd going for 20, 30 million, maybe even Zuma.
Maybe Max
Cornet, Danny Ings.
I'm so sorry.
Cornet,
and I don't mean to
Danny
laugh
Ings.
at a situation, but people are saying Max Cornet's offside should be investigated. Then people are saying Calvin Phillips should be investigated, all that sort of stuff. But, sorry, Matt, sorry.
No, I'll say, you're looking at, say, 60, 70 million plus the 20 million we've got for the completes of them, plus anything else we sell. You could still look at 140 to sort of 180 million potentially to spend without selling Paqueta. So if they do this sort of quick and then it has to go to Cass, and say it's 6 months, say it's like Ivan Toney, basically he gets a ban, we appeal it, it goes to an actual real court where evidence is needed and they say, no, you've done it wrong and it's thrown out. You might lose him for 6 months, invest this money elsewhere to bring in new players, and then still end up with him afterwards. So it might end up, like we're talking apparently with this, is it Gasova, how you pronounce it, in Brazil? If you bring him in and end up moving Kudus into the middle, for instance, and then come September, October time, they go, oh, Paqueta's fine, it's all been cleared off, he's now back in the team. You've essentially improved the other areas and then had him to come back into the team. I mean, the only thing other thing you could hope for is maybe, I don't know, would Sullivan do it? Give him a new contract? Say, you've only had 2 years left, we wanted to sell you now, but you sign a new 3-year deal with a get-out clause that if you do get found guilty, then the contract gets ripped up. Because no one else is going to take you now. No one else is going to touch you.
Yeah. I guess it could be the grounds for renegotiation. The difficult bit is, though, if he's done it, he knows he's done it. So is he just keeping poker face and just sticking by it until it changes?
But this is what I find really interesting, right? So I think in most walks of life, in terms of prosecution, like you said, Matt, you'll have a team of people around you. You'll have a lot of money to be able to get a very, very good team of experts around you. So you'll be getting advised on what's right. Now, if they genuinely believe he's got damning evidence, there probably is a part of them that would go, plead guilty and submit a claim of I've got some gambling addiction. I'm not trying to say it's an excuse. I'm just saying that's probably what would happen.
I would say definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And then that's probably would not change the ban. It would just reduce the ban of some sort. But the fact that you're standing your ground and you're adamant makes me and I'm looking at the Tonali situation. The Tonali situation was dealt with really quickly because Tonali admitted the charges. I can't remember the Tony off the top of my head. I can't remember the 21 off the top of my head, but
I think
because if they have,
because he didn't plead guilty to all the charges.
Yeah, but if they do have damning evidence of Paqueta, and he still goes and says, "Nah, I'm not guilty," and then they've got the evidence, it's going to make him look worse in this case. That's the problem. That's where it's like, well, you're determined, and I know you get people in life, no matter what, you will get determined to try and prove your innocence. And again, though, if you do read messages, and what will be damning is if on that day he has messaged someone saying, like, or someone from the island saying something that's code or whatever, then that won't help the scenario. But if you're so adamant and you've got a team of people around you, it's only thing. It's a little bit like put the faith in. We talk a lot about the Tim Steiden thing. You know, there's a reason why, even though David Moyes was there, there's a reason why Timmy was sticking around. Timmy was sticking around because he knew at the end of the season he was going to get control of the situation. And Paqueta, I don't know, it's a really weird analogy I've just used, but it's just a point I'm trying to make is he's adamant, and that's potentially the saving grace, but who knows?
Touching on the Tony stuff, so what you were saying, he did plead guilty to 232 charges, but his ban was reduced to 11 months because of that, and then it was further reduced because he said that he had an addiction to gambling. So like you said, I think obviously people are just going to listen to their teams, whether they're legal teams, and I assume when you've got the money of a Premier League footballer, you have a rather talented team probably telling you what to say and not to say. But yeah, I think pleading guilty, if you are going to be found guilty, will reduce, I imagine, criminal charges as well as any ban.
Yeah.
But if you think you can get away with it, would you just...
I'm sure the Ivan Toney, I'm sure he literally went on his podcast or someone's podcast afterwards and was like, "Oh, I pleaded guilty because they told me to plead guilty, but I definitely wasn't guilty to all charges, and I'm still adamant that this many charges I wasn't guilty or I was innocent of."
Yeah. So it's kind of like saying you're guilty to get a reduced sentence, then the second you're out,
so if he is like bang to rights guilty, his legal team will be telling him, no, you need to, because even like I said, in actual criminal court, like in an actual court of law, if you are guilty, you will get like sometimes a massively reduced sentence if you plead guilty. You know, sometimes pleading guilty in court is the difference between going to jail and like getting a suspended sentence. So,
and the other thing is,
if he has done it and he doesn't plead guilty,
it is an interesting one. And you're looking at, obviously, Tony said that he had a betting problem, but he was the one placing the bets. Whereas with Paqueta, it doesn't sound as though he's placed any bets himself. Therefore, you can't do the addiction side of the plea.
Unless he can magic up some like South American mafia story.
You never know.
I was just jumping through so many comments. There's so many people and so many comments on here. So the club have to back him until something is proven. Another day in Gotham City at this football club. It certainly is. It certainly is. Investigate noise. More than 70 goals conceded.
Do you think that the club, obviously we want Paqueta to play and we don't want him to lose his value. Do you think that the club should back him until he's proven guilty, or do you think that they should tread on the more cautious side? Because you obviously look at players that have done completely different things to betting, but where clubs have sort of taken a stand against what they've allegedly done and sort of early cut them from the team, cut them from the side. Do you think there's any downside to keep him playing him?
I'm personally surprised the club haven't put a statement out yet, if I'm being honest. And I'm surprised they've not put out a very clever, they could easily put a statement out backing him, but use clever words to say alleged charges, and depending on the result of evidence, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff that covers their back but protects their player at the same time because they've got a duty to protect him as much as they can. I think equally, we could be sitting here and saying he's fucked, but in actual fact, he might not be fucked because he may have done absolutely nothing wrong. And that could be the real situation here. And we're sitting and people are equally making a judgment saying that. And he genuinely could be totally fine. And it could be a bad mistake or the evidence isn't there.
Do you reckon somewhere out there right now we've got there's a marketing manager at West Ham on draft 50 of a wishy-washy metal press statement?
I'd be really intrigued though, because what we hear about is always the charges and always the irregular betting scenarios. What we don't hear about is the ones that are raised that don't ever really get to the table. And I wonder how many of them get wrong, or I wonder how many of them get as far or one step back. You don't really think. I don't genuinely think many fans who don't support West Ham and Man City would have necessarily known about Paqueta's gambling things unless you were a fan of West Ham or Manchester City. You heard a little, notion of the Tonali, not much of the Tonali, but more of the Tony thing than you did of the Tonali thing. But when the Tony thing came out, then you went, oh, okay, that's happening. But I just wonder how many other potential things are out there that we don't know about, and how many of them actually get taken to the table. But the FA concern me. I'm not going to lie; they've always concerned me in how they conduct their actions and how.
So West Ham have and haven't put out a statement.
Where
there's nothing on West Ham's Twitter. There's nothing on the West Ham website, but some form of media, I don't know which newspaper, contacted West Ham and said, do you have any comments on this? And the club have just said, the club acknowledges receipt of the FA charges received by Lucas Paqueta for alleged breaches of their rules. Lucas categorically denies the breach and will continue to robustly defend this position. The club will continue to stand by and support the player throughout the process and will make no further comment until the matter is concluded.
There you go.
There you go. Heard it here first.
There you go. Mandy says either way, Paqueta's done. If he just gets a year ban, he'll be off next season. Matt, the video was called Diary of the CEO. It was.
Yeah.
Grant Xhaka got cleared with spot fixing.
Which, that one, by the way, is insane compared to... If you actually look at this one, compared to this compare one, this one's insane. So he got done, but again, for getting booked. I don't know if it was home or away. They were 4-1 up in like the 89th minute, and they had a free kick roughly on the halfway line, if I remember, where it might be slightly deeper, like say 10, 15 yards in the Arsenal half. And he's on the ball to take the free kick. And literally continually for about 30 seconds, you have Arsenal players coming short to receive this ball. And he just stands there looking, doing this, and the ref just comes over and books him. And straight away, everyone at the time was like, that's a bit suspicious. Months later, it came out, he got charged, which went on for 18 months. And they were like, oh no, we found no evidence.
So I'm reading here, the FA investigated Xhaka for 6 months and escalated it to a criminal inquiry.
Yeah.
However, the matter has been dropped without any charges being brought earlier in the summer. That was back then. A crypto operator registered that someone like best place for.
Yeah, if you actually see the video of the charge he done, it was ridiculous. Like you talk about the yellow cards that Paqueta tried. People saying, "Oh, he was trying to get booked." There was like no excuse for that video if you see it whatsoever. It's shocking.
Do you know what? The thing that baffles me as well with a lot of the spot fixing and things like that you see is how blatantly obvious some of them are. Like if someone was to say to me right now, make a tackle that's going to get you a yellow card that someone's going to place a bet on, you would make it a proper organic one, wouldn't you? You wouldn't be stupid. You wouldn't time waste. You wouldn't do anything like you're saying with Xhaka, looking left and right, not doing anything. So it baffles me that there are so many stories like this where we're talking about people with phones or accounts directly linked to their own name or
you think with that much money, so Paqueta, right? If I'm Paqueta and I'm guilty and I'm doing this thing, I'm like paying someone cash in hand, pay someone cash in hand, pay someone cash in hand, to then send a message on a burner phone to another burner phone to someone else to get it done. I'm not going to pull out my brand new iPhone 15 that I've just paid. I don't know who they use. Like, oh, he's gone O2, new O2 deal. He's like, yeah, I'm just texting mum, get the bet on. Like, no, like,
Lucas Paqueta at gmail.com.
Yeah, like, it's Paqueta at Apple. You know, his Apple account. He didn't send it even iMessage and he's deleted it. Like, surely, one, they've got too much money for that. You know what? He could have literally just took a plane back to Rio de Janeiro and got a boat across the island and just walked into the house and said it himself. And it would have been easier than there'd been no trial rather than doing it on his phone. Oh, you went back to Rio de Janeiro? Yeah, I went back to see mum. And then I also told the guy down the road to put a bet on because I'm going to get booked against Aston Villa next week. Like, it seems ridiculous.
Keep talking amongst yourselves. I'm actually going to get a screenshot, right? I'll show you something, but just keep talking amongst yourselves.
What Neil said below here about being innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
I think that's 100% the case. Like, you've as a club, it would be mad to get rid of your best asset, cut ties with them, slate them in the media simply because there's an allegation which currently doesn't have any proof. Because as it stands, you should be innocent till proven guilty. If there's no evidence, he won't be charged. And why would you have therefore just like banished Paqueta? But I think one of the interesting things we've got at the moment is that regardless of whether you're guilty, whether there's evidence, only a part of the story is said to the media. And there's almost a separate trial now on social media because people don't back down from that and people conduct their own investigations. And even we're here now chatting about this. And I feel like that's a whole other side of it, which does impact things, and people want to try and find things out. People want to know what's going on. So there's almost the reputational damage, I suppose, that happens as a result of things like this, where when the FA do come out and actually say something, you'd really hope that they would have that evidence to prove it. Otherwise, they've literally fed him to the wolves, haven't they?
I'm just gonna like jump forward because this comment really like stuck with there's one at the front. Adam the Architect. I remember Rafa Benitez telling Dirk Kuyt to elbow an opponent to pick up a yellow to be suspended for the second leg, which enabled him to play in the latter stage of the Champions League. And this still happens all the time. You see it all, even in the Premier League. You'll see it all in like the Champions League, Europa League. Oh, you know, you got booked in the first two games of the Champions League. Well, if you get, you know, we're already qualified with a game to go. So if you get booked now, you can miss the last group stage and be back ready for the knockouts. And you see how like. I think one of them was like literally, I think Ramos. I see one a while back, and it was literally like he was getting subbed off, and they're like, "No, you need to get booked." So he just like went over and just kept like shaking the ref's hand and walking off and going back. And eventually, the ref booked him because he wouldn't leave the pitch. He was like, "Oh, great! Now he misses the next game in the non important game, so he can come back ready." So how can you try and argue and discern that from what this is?
Yeah, because it's almost like. I guess the question is, what are the FA placing bans on? Is it unsportsmanlike conduct? So things like this shouldn't be technically happening or being encouraged. There was a team, wasn't there, that just passed the ball around as well once to things like that.
Last week before was it the League One or the League Two on the last day of the season where there was a 1-1 draw?
Yeah,
and it turned out that. The team down the bottom, that point kept them up, and the team at the top, that point got them into the playoffs.
Yeah. So all these things
for like the last 5 minutes of the game, they literally just passed it round like a trade draw. And the fans, like on social media, were going mad, like, "Oh, this is basically." They were saying, "Oh, this is match fixing. You know that a point's enough now, so you're not doing it. Where's the sporting integrity?" And
But again, it's so like all of this stuff is so wishy-washy and so difficult to prove. Because if you're banning players for unsportsmanlike conduct, then things like telling people to pick up yellows to be suspended so that they don't miss a certain game, that shouldn't be allowed. But otherwise, if it's actually based on evidence, I feel like you need to actually have the evidence. And I don't know how much the FA, like they said that if Paqueta wasn't complying, does that mean that they just said to him, "Can you email us over all your betting records, all your logins, all of this, screenshots?" Like, what powers, I suppose, did they actually have in terms of investigating a case like this? Because they can't force you, can they? I know they can ban you, but it's not illegal.
They'd have to go to court, wouldn't they?
That's exactly
They
it.
have to go to court to get the powers to do it. Because don't forget, like, he could turn around and say, they could say, right, these people in Betway have betting account, we think, you're involved. Show us your phone record. And he could say, like, and it could, like, as I say, circumstances, right? He could say, well, I got a new phone contract in November and I changed from O2 to Vodafone. I got rid of the records. I had no reason to keep the records. I don't have the phone. You can go and get it off O2 if you want.
Yeah.
And O2 will go, well, no, like consumer, was it data protection? We can't just give over that. You're going to have to go to court and get it. So it could be something like that. And he's like, well, I don't have that phone anymore. I don't have access to that account. O2 have closed the account. You have to go to O2 or whoever, and you have to ask them for the evidence. Yeah. And they'll turn around and say, we can't do that. You have to go to court. And is that not complying?
I've just managed to do it. I couldn't bring the content up. I couldn't actually bring the video version of it up, but I've taken as best screenshots as I could take from the actual incidences themselves. So I'll bring these up. This is from the games and if you use your savvy, you'll know which ones they are. Now, this particular incident, when Paqueta makes the tackle, the ball is actually a lot closer to him and the player. So as him and the player are traveling, Paqueta has literally just missed the ball. And if I'm in that position, as a football person who watches it, he's more than entitled to make that tackle. Again, go and look at the video yourself. In my opinion, I don't know what your thoughts are. Just very briefly from looking at that. I know it's very tough. I know we're doing a VAR incident here. We're doing it without the knowledge. But again, seeing it in real play, he's more than entitled. And in my opinion, it's not dangerous. Yes, it is a yellow card because he doesn't get the ball, but it's not like he's doing it like you said, Holly. How do you define something that's intentional? That, well, you look at a yellow card and you look at irregular bets on that game. Is that what it is? Is that where it's coming from? Yeah.
Because in real time, you look at those and you can see why you would lunge in to make a tackle because you've got that moment to make that decision. And then there's obviously you realize halfway through when you're flying through the air that you've messed up. The previous picture there, looking at that still screenshot, there's not a chance in hell that when he's at that angle, he's ever getting to that ball where it currently is, considering the fact that the ball's also moving off to the right. But again, it's just so it's all an opinion, isn't it? It really is.
I mean, it's the best I could do very quickly, briefly, just showing you examples of the yellow cards that they're saying that, again, I don't know how, there's nothing in the 3 tackles that make me think they were intentionally done to get a yellow card.
See,
because I think if you're going to try and, for me, an intentional yellow card is dissent. More than anything. That's the thing that guarantees an intentional one, yeah.
It's not like any of these yellow cards are like we got in the Frankfurt game where the guy was like off the pitch because the ball went out for throwing and he just smashed it 50 yards into the crowd. Or it's not like a professional foul when the guy's got past you on the counter attack and you just grab his shirt and pull him down. Yeah. He's making a tackle for the ball where it's one ref would give a booking for that, one ref might not. I don't know those games. I can't remember the stats, but one of them could have just been he's made 4 fouls and he just missed the ball, but it's your 4th foul, you're getting booked.
Yeah.
Someone in the comments put like the Bournemouth game, he got booked in the 94th minute. Yeah. If he's running a frigging spot fixing scheme, he's not waiting until the game's done and the ref's about to blow the whistle to go, oh no, I haven't been booked yet. Quick, go do something. Like especially with the you've got the massive clock on either end of the pitch. He's looking at that going, oh, it's 75th, 80th minute now. I'll get my booking in. He's not going to go, oh no, I forgot what I'm doing. Oh yeah, I need to get booked now. It's the 94th minute. Let's just quickly go and 2-foot someone and hope the ref gives me a card.
Yeah. And with what John's saying here about it all being so subjective, you can literally see this right now in the comments. So tackle from behind, bang on yellow card, and then another person saying you make similar tackles every week. And Paqueta is
but I have to add though, that's me taking a very brief image. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I wish I could put it up, but we'll get done for copyright for doing it. But when you see it in real play, yes, he makes a connection. Yes, it's a yellow card, but he's taking the risk of being sent off and or connecting with the ball and not getting a yellow card. So there's no, in my opinion, from looking at the tackle, there's no guarantee you're walking away with a yellow card from that.
Yeah,
like you can't pinpoint that. What makes it dodgy as such is the irregular bets on those games.
Yeah.
It seems to be.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
makes the situation. That's what.
Like we
highlights
said,
it.
that could be. I could literally go next season and go. We know Alvarez is. Alvarez dives in, so he's always that thin line between winning the ball or getting booked. I could go next season and put £2 or £5 on every week, and go what Alvarez to be booked and Haaland to score.
Yeah.
1 in 2 or 1 in 3, that bet is going to come in and will cover the rest of the money you've bet for the other 2 bets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that become the regular betting pattern? Is Haaland going to get investigated because he's scoring every week and people are betting on it?
I'd love to know what they actually look at and what they monitor on a regular basis from footballers as well. Because so we know that they can't bet themselves, but I'd love to know what brings it to their attention. Like Tony hasn't bet on any games that are linked to himself and his own performances, but what is it exactly that flags the investigation or flags them starting to look at things more seriously?
There is like a software algorithm thing that all the betting companies use.
Yeah, to spot irregular.
That will automatically flag stuff.
Yeah.
I think it literally is the fact that, like, was it 20 or 30 people from this random island that you said in Brazil all opened new Betway accounts, and Betway isn't a major betting company in Brazil apparently, and they chuck money on Paqueta to get booked. But if you think like, oh, there's going to be, West Ham at least for a while will have like a Brazilian following because Paqueta plays for them, and you've got Betway in ginormous frigging letters posted across the chest of the shirt, they might go, oh, let's use Betway. Is that not literally the point of marketing? Yeah.
That's what
the advertising works.
That's
what they're paying for. Right? So they crack the South American market and they've all gone, oh, Paqueta's a bit fiery. He always loves putting his foot in. We'll get on him to be booked. And it's like, oh, no, can't do that.
Oh, just ruined his career. Roy here as well asking, does anyone know the actual amount of money that was gambled? Can you imagine if it was like 50p?
It's not even a lot. It's not that small. I should have like screenshot it, but this was like last year. So at the time, at the most it was £1,000. I don't think it's anywhere near that big, because Betway have a bet limit on your first bet. So I'm sure I read somewhere
when you account
it was like maybe a maximum of about £500, and the return was like up to about £2,500.
Doesn't seem
about 50, I said it in somewhere. I don't know the number. It's somewhere between 10 and 30 people basically open those bets, put the maximum bet on for Paqueta and this other Brazilian guy playing in Spain to both be booked. That's what flagged it, because it was the exact same bet. But again, like, anyone that has social media, you get all these betting accounts on Twitter, or X, should we say now? Sorry, X. You get all these betting accounts that say, oh, follow my ACCA this weekend, or here's my special bet, because, they work in promotion with betting companies, and, oh, I can get you special odds on this bet. So, and they don't, that's never flagged when, the guy on Twitter who's got 1,000 followers all bet a £5 on Harry Kane to score and Sane to get booked, and, the 5 permutations he gets that never win, and they all rake the money, and they never like highlight that, do they?
No.
Right, well, listen, we've tried our best to explain as much as we possibly can. This is probably going to go on for a little while longer. Try and enjoy your evening and try and think about the future under Julien Lopetegui. If you haven't already, please go and watch West Ham Clips' more recent Twitter video, X video. It's 90 minutes long, and I'm 20 minutes in, and I do not know how the person does it, but they do, and it's quality. It is quality. 20 minutes in, and you might end up crying at the end of it, wishing you had Moisey back. Totally joking.
What an end to the video.
I know, what an end to the video. Listen, thank you very much for watching. Holly, Matt, any last words you want to say?
Hopefully he's not guilty and they don't have the evidence, and we can keep Paqueta forevermore, who is grateful that we stood by him during this time and then doesn't want to go to City.
Matt?
Tim's about to cook. Get ready for an exciting summer.
Yes.
Absolutely. And if you are new around here, and if all of yous who are watching haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button now. We're on the march towards 25,000 subscribers. The next target's 30 by the end of the year. It's happening, so please do it. It really does help us out. I'm looking at the live counter now, and I really want that to see that go up. Go for it. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. Plenty of content coming your way. We need to change our name to the news now of West Ham, whatever news, because it's relentless and it's never stopping. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Take it easy, and of course, hold on a minute here. BBC Sport has an article about a player called. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier on. Trini, shame. I want to offload him to City. Yes, Tim, nice one, guys. Come on, you irons, and yes, we'll take it easy and come on, you irons.
Irons.